Lady Jensen here. Today we are going to be making some chicken BLTs with some of our leftover challah bread, and we're going to make a cinnamon pumpkin coffee cake. So let's start by getting our bacon cooking up for our BLTs, and then we're gonna make some truffled Parmesan fries. So we've got lots of delicious things, and we'll get the fries going so they can start baking as well. Let's get this. Let's see if this easy peel apart thing actually is easy, because it never is. Yeah, I think it would have been. Peel here, they say. Peel here. Okay, let's go back to the old-fashioned method of let's grab out a pair of scissors. We'll get our bacon going. And I'm just going to do kind of like a crazy fry on the bacon. We're going to use it all since this are BLTs. And with BLTs, you need lots of bacon. Bacon. That was one of the things when I was at look at this bacon. It's not even held together in the middle. I'm just going to break it so that we have, there we go. And we'll just have little pieces there. That was barely holding on. But that was something that was in the store completely. You know, they had lots of bacon and sausage. So I was like, kids, we're going to have a lot of bacon. I'm still hoping that we're going to get lots more snow. We've got about, like 2 inches right now. It's still kind of snowing off and on there. I'm hoping for more and more. I need it to really snow in and make it nice and cozy. Because I need my snowed in. I need a couple of days of school canceled. We've got to get the true snow day effect here. We don't get a lot of snow down here. Okay. I've got my bacon all pretty much separated here for our little crazy fry. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And then we can turn on our burner. I'm going to start it on high, and then once it starts to sweat out some of the fat, we'll bring it down to a medium. Okay, let's get our fries, our truffled fries prepping. I've got 3 russet potatoes here that we're going to cut up and do fries with. I made these a couple weeks ago, and they were everyone just absolutely loved them. They're so delicious on here. And they kind of remind me of one of my favorite little fries to get when I see at a restaurant. They're so delicious. So I have them because, I feel like a sandwich is, you can either have, chips or fries. Those both just work well with it. And try to get them all roughly the same size. We start tossing them here. And then we're going to coat them with a little bit of olive oil, truffle oil, garlic salt, Parmesan cheese, some flour, panko breadcrumbs. Give it a nice, almost like a breaded coating on them, very light, but it'll give you that battered steak fry textured, which will be lovely. There we go. And get these. And then we'll work on our pumpkin coffee cake. So I'm going to take my pumpkin kind of muffin recipe, but change it a little bit. Instead of doing pumpkin spice, I'm going to do cinnamon, because coffee cake typically has like a vanilla cinnamon base in it. And then I'm going to make my coffee cake kind of filling that I put between the layers and then on top. And we're going to do that on there. So it'll be a nice kind of a mixture of 2 of our favorites. You get the streusel and you get the pumpkin. And that will be nice, because after lunch, we're going to go out and brave the cold and play in the snow. I'm hoping it snows just a little bit more so that we can get some sledding in and maybe make a snowman. I don't feel like it's the most pack-worthy snow, so If you can't really put it together, it's really hard to make a snowman. We might do some snow art too. I always like to save like little plastic bottles, like squirt bottles and stuff. And then I have liquid watercolor that will like spray the like the snow with and kind of just dye it. And it's really, really fun. Okay, we've got our potatoes coated. Let me grab. I can hear the fat starting to sizzle down, so I'm going to turn my temperature down just a little bit to about a 5, and we'll give these a nice toss.
And how much snow have you guys gotten?
So far, we've gotten about 2 inches on here, so not a terrible lot. I'm hoping for more. You know, we're kind of in that area where it's going to either be snow or ice, and so I'm hoping for snow over ice. So wishful thinking here, wishful thinking. I'm going to just keep positive. Lots of snow, lots of snow, lots of snow. We're going to drizzle our potatoes here. I'm going to do about a teaspoon of truffle oil. A little bit of truffle oil goes a long way, so you don't need a whole lot to get that nice flavor. And then we're going to finish it up with some olive oil. We need about a tablespoon, I think. Out this bottle is done. Just splash more. Enough to kind of coat them, but it doesn't need to be glistening. We're going to put in about, 2 tablespoons of flour. So we have this nice kind of battered base to it. Kind of shake over. And then I've got a little bit of panko breadcrumbs. We're going to put in here about 2 tablespoons of those as well. Some garlic salt. Good sprinkle around. And a little onion powder. Make a nice savory flavor on it. A little black pepper. And then I'm going to grate some Parmesan cheese over it, and then we'll kind of toss it. The Parmesan cheese will crisp up really nicely in the oven, which will be lovely. And then we'll give these a quick toss, and then we'll lay them out on our baking sheet, and then we'll pop them in the oven to start cooking. Since my pumpkin coffee cake is going to have to bake at 300, these will go in, start there, and then at the very end, we'll put our air fryer on to do the final crisping up. But this will allow them to get nice and soft in there, and then we'll crisp up the outer edge. Okay, we're going to go in there with our hands, and we'll toss all of our potatoes up with our delicious kind of seasoned mixture here. Make sure you really coat them up, because you want each one to be kind of battered in it. So you're going to get your hands a little coated, but that is a-okay. So when they're done, they should look like that, and they almost have like a batter on them, like a light mixture. And that's where all that flavor in, but that's what's going to crisp up so nicely in the oven. It's going to give you that feel as if you've got deep fried French fries, but they're oven roasted. And then we're going to spread these out on our baking sheet. I like to bake them directly on the metal versus on like parchment paper, because parchment paper doesn't give you quite as crispy of a bake. Now don't just leave them there. We'll spread them out, and then just make sure each piece has its spot so that, again, they can crisp up nicely. We'll spread these out.
Do you ever deep fry your fries?
I have a deep fryer, and whenever I get it out and I decide to do like a deep fried dinner where I'm making a lot of deep fried stuff, then I typically will throw fries in with that, but I don't do it very often on there because it's a lot of oil you have to use, and you know, and I don't fry enough food to warrant keeping it there. So we do a lot of in the oven, which is with our air fryer setting on it. Okay, I'm gonna give my hands a quick rinse and then we can pop these in the oven.
And how were the stuffed doughs last night?
Oh, amazing. They were so, so good. It was like so ooey gooey and delicious inside. And the sausage was like the perfect amount of like texture and flavor. It was wonderful. All the kids loved them as well. Tanya was like, "Can I have more?" And I was like, "As long as we leave a little bit for Momo and Grandpa." And since I brought them over, and my mom was very, very happy to get some homemade bread as well last night. Here, we'll pop them in here. I have my oven at 350. When we put our pumpkin coffee cake in, I'm going to bring that down, put it on there, and then we'll finish them up at the air fryer setting to crisp them up nicely at the end. But this will allow them to get cooked all the way through. Okay, let's work on our pumpkin coffee cake. So we're going to start off with a 1/4 cup of melted butter. There we go. And then we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of our sourdough discard. So I fed up my sourdough this morning so we can whip up some more loaves today. So 1/2 cup. Let's see if we'll save it if I want to do any more discard.
Yo has a question for you.
What's for dinner tonight? The question of the day. I'm not 100% sure. I have too many options right now because I still have bought so much in case we got snowed through. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm still thinking it through. Oh, I don't know. I have nowhere to be going tonight, but I am not sure what. Well, it depends on how much time, how much fun outside playing is, how cold it is. But I'm not sure. There's so many possibilities, but.
And can you go over what discard is?
Discard is so when you have making like sourdough, you have your starter, which is a mixture of fermented flour and water that's kind of been sitting on your countertop for a while. So here's one. I fed it this morning and it's already starting to bubble up. But when you feed it, you take out some of your starter in there, which is called discard. And instead of just throwing it away, you can use it in recipes like muffins, coffee cakes, all sorts of things. And it's absolutely delicious. And it's just a great way not to have waste. But essentially, it's a mixture of flour and water that's kind of got really great, good, healthy bacteria in it through the kind of fermentation process. Get our bacon here. Okay, I'm going to open up my can and we're going to add in a cup of pumpkin puree.
And what's your starter's name?
So that tall, skinny one is Jacques. And then my big fat one, which is right next to it, this guy, this is Gus Gus. So here's I make a lot of like sourdough, and so I started out with one. I had 3 at one point, but I dropped one, so now I'm down to 2. But I like having them because I can feed them at different times, which means, I'll have discard ready, or I can make bread depending on how much, if I need to make a lot of loaves of bread or not. We need 1 cup of pumpkin puree, which is about 2/3 of your can, I have found. Save that. Mix the pumpkin into our discard and our melted butter. And then we're going to add in 2 eggs. There we go. There it is. Making sure it didn't roll away. So 1 egg and 2 eggs.
Do you ever combine the starters to make something?
Sometimes I will mix them back and forth. They all come from the same base. So if I find that I have too much in Jacques, where if he's too high, he goes into Gus Gus because they'll bubble over or they'll rise over. So they go back and forth a lot on there. So they're the same kind of batch. They're not 2 different flours or things. Sometimes I'll make a chocolate starter, which then I'll get another jar out for if I'm in the mood for making a lot of chocolate, either sourdoughs or discard recipes for it. But I don't do it all the time because it uses, to maintain your chocolate starter, it uses a lot of ingredients and can get expensive pretty fast. So I typically just I'll make one, whip it up, and I'll only have it around for like a week. Here we go. Let's mix this egg in. And we're going to add in a cup of brown sugar. Let me grab my measuring spoon. So this is a 1/2 cup. So we'll do 2 of these. Make sure they're firmly packed in. 1, that's a 1/2 cup. And 1/2 cup more. We still need this in a little bit for our cinnamon crumb topping that will go for it. Pop. And kind of coat them up. Make sure we get that brown sugar mixed in. And then we're going to add in our salt, baking soda, and cinnamon. Now, a lot of times with my pumpkin muffins, I'll do a pumpkin spice or cinnamon with allspice cloves. But today I'm keeping it just cinnamon, so it's not competing with the cinnamon streusel topping, which also has a good amount of cinnamon in it. So kind of keeping it more mild there. We're going to add in a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to do a heaping tablespoon of cinnamon on here. So if you wanted to do pumpkin spice, this is where you would do a tablespoon of pumpkin spice. And shake it off because we're also going to be using a tablespoon of cinnamon in our streusel topping. So lots of cinnamon in this dish, but it'll be delicious. A teaspoon of baking soda. And a teaspoon of vanilla. We'll mix that on, and then we'll be ready to add our flour.
Yeah, question. What do truffle fries taste like?
So truffle has a really unique flavor on itself that I want to say it's really hard to kind of describe, but it pairs really well with garlic and Parmesan. So it just kind of, it enhances that. It has an aromatic kind of base to it, but I don't know if I could really tell you what that flavor is. The idea that it's based off of the truffled mushrooms, but it's not exactly the same as that. But they're really, really good. So don't think, oh, I don't like mushrooms, that I'm not going to like truffle fries, because my husband doesn't like mushrooms and he likes truffle fries. So they play more into that Parmesan, garlic, kind of that nice cheesy, savory thing versus the other seasoning, which hits more of like a Lowry celery salt base for it. So it's really lovely.
It's a good comparison. It's like a bay leaf. It's an enhancer.
Yes, it is. It's an enhancer. It's an aromatic enhancer to it, essentially like a bay leaf, where you can't really tell you what the flavor is, but it does. It adds it to you. Just here we go. I got our bacon there. I'm flipping it around. We've got our crazy fry on it, and we'll let that crisp up to go on our BLTs. Let's add our cup of flour in, and then we'll make our streusel kind of topping to go in the middle and on top of our things. We only need a cup of flour in this part because we have, again, a half cup of our sourdough discard, but pumpkin also adds a little base to this, which also keeps it very, very moist. Make sure there's no pockets. And because this is a butter base, just be careful not to over mix it. You want to mix it just until that white powderiness of the flour is mixed in to keep this a light and fluffy pumpkin loaf instead of dense.
Do you use self-rising flour?
I do not. This is just regular all-purpose flour. We already added in our baking soda. Self-rising flour has a mixture of like baking soda in it, so that would add too much of those baking ingredients for it. Here we go. And so make sure, don't worry, you want it lumpy and chunky. That is a good sign. Our bacon is just almost there. And turn it down just a smidge, kind of let it crisp up in that bacon grease. A lot of times I know when it's ready is when you get a lot of this white foam on the top of it. That's like the last of the moisture and the fat of the bacon crisping out. Okay, let's make our cinnamon crumb topping. We're going to start with a half a cup of melted butter. Grab a spatula because we don't want to waste it, especially since butter was a premium at the store this week because everybody was one of those items that everybody bought up as well for the storm. And then we're going to add in a tablespoon of cinnamon, a cup of brown sugar. We'll mix that up, and then we're going to add in a cup of flour. So it'll be a nice kind of, that is not brown sugar, or that is not cinnamon. Let's do our cinnamon and then our brown sugar. And it's going to seem like a lot of cinnamon, but with coffee cake, there's a lot of cinnamon in it, and it just is what makes it wonderful. And then we need a whole cup of brown sugar. So let's firmly pack it in. And I'm using light brown, but you could also use dark brown sugar if you want. That will have a stronger molasses flavor to it, a little bit more of a Christmas flavor. Before we mix that in, I'm just going to grab a plate here because I think our bacon is just about ready, and some paper towels. That way we can have our bacon resting, soak up that extra grease. Let's flip it over. See, these are looking pretty darn good. I always have a hard time cooking bacon exactly perfect for each one of my family members because everyone has a different method. Some like it chewy, some like it crunchy, some, like that perfect in between. But I find with a crazy fry, you typically can hit all of the levels on it. If you're careful when you're leaving some closer to the outside when you're toasting, those outside ones will be a little bit more chewy, but your inside ones will be more crispy. So like my daughter who loves crispy, that's crispy. My other daughter who loves chewy, I've got a couple chewy pieces here. So I'm getting everybody, knocking them all off. But the majority are like everybody else in the middle. It's always the girls, they're the picky ones. The opinionated ones. My boys will just eat the bacon because it's bacon. Who's complaining? The bacon does not need to go by the cameraman. I say we're having BLTs. We'll probably be having chicken sandwiches by the time we get there. Okay. Let's get our cinnamon, butter, and brown sugar. That cinnamon is going to make this a really rich color in here, which is going to give it that really beautiful beautiful kind of crumb thing. So mix this up. Always do this first before you add in the flour so that you can evenly get the sugar and the butter mixed together. There we go. And now we'll add in our cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to give it a stir, but typically I just go in with my fingers in a little bit and kind of crumble it apart to make sure I get the right texture. Because I don't want to turn it into a paste as much as I want it to be crumbs. So if I find that it's a bit too much moisture in it, I'll add a little bit more flour. You just never, sometimes with brown sugar, it's more damp than other brown sugar, just depending on how much molasses or it's been added back into it.
Do you ever make bagels?
I do make bagels. I think I made them like a week or two ago. I have this great sourdough bagel recipe where I'll prep up the bagels dough at night and leave it out over on the counter overnight. And they are so, so good. I love that. Was one of those things that if we get like, again, ice stormed in, we're home a couple days, I'll probably be making bagels one day because my kids love bagels as well. Especially like making nice. There's two that I just love. It's the cinnamon crunch and the everything bagels. They just love those. And the Italian herbs and cheese one is delicious as well. Okay, let's get these loaves in so we can get them baking. I've got my spray. Spray each one of your loaf pans down really well. Now you can also do this in a, like, I want to say like a 9x9 or pan, but it will take a lot longer to bake up. So I like to do it, or I can do it in like a 9x13, which would give you a thinner one for it, but I like to do it in my mini muffin pans or my mini loaf pans because it gives you kind of like the perfect little serving and they bake up faster and are delicious. We're going to put a nice kind of scoop of our pumpkin batter in the bottom of each one. Don't fill it too much, otherwise you won't have enough of your batter to go on the top of it, and then you won't really have a nice cinnamon kind of swirl right through the middle of your coffee cake, which is like an essential part. It just adds up the flavor.
Can you go over the ingredients for that batter?
So this is based on my, my pumpkin kind of muffin batter. So I started off with a half a cup of my sourdough discard with a fourth a cup of butter. Cream those together. Added in 2 eggs and a cup of brown sugar. Do my hands real quick. And then mix those up. Then we added in a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of vanilla. Mix all of those up, and then you add in a cup of flour. So pretty simple, easy base recipe. I'm gonna give this a good shake out. Here we go. So you want to make sure you've got all of your bottoms kind of covered there. Then we're going to take our crumb mixture here. And we're going to try to use half of it. And we'll sprinkle it over the top of each one of these because then we'll put our batter right back on top. But this is going to give you this wonderful cinnamon flavor. I always try to use my smaller crumbs in this part, and I save my bigger crumbs for the top because I like the bigger crumbs.
Yeah, question. Do you make your own condiments such as dressings and sauces?
I make my own like salad dressings all the time and tartar sauces and yum sauces. So several of my condiments I make my own of, but like, the classics like ketchup, mustard, those I do buy. I mean, those are just classics. But a lot of them, or if it's a specialty type things, I will make them myself for it. Except Chick-fil-A sauce. We're great lovers of Chick-fil-A sauce in our house. I always have to have a backup for the backup because if we don't have our Chick-fil-A sauce, it can be a tense moment between my boys. Who gets the last of it? There we go. So we've got our base. We still have a good amount of crumb left over. which I like. So no more than half. You can do more, but no more than half. We're going to go back and we're going to scoop the rest of our pumpkin batter on each one. And then kind of even it out. So I'll do a little bit first and then we'll go back and even. Just want to make sure you have enough to put on every one, and then don't just over scoop and then realize, oh, I've got to borrow from some. It's easier to put less on each one first and then add a little bit more. Because once it's touched that crumb topping, it's not going to scoop up as well if you have to remove some. Here we go. And now I'll kind of go back over with this, and then we'll finish off with our crumb on top, and then we'll pop these in the oven to bake. They're going to bake for about 22 minutes. Now, sometimes they take a little bit more, just depends on how thick each streusel topping you did. If you do one thicker than the other, then sometimes it takes a little bit longer to bake up. So 22 minutes to start. My pumpkin muffins typically only take 20 muffins, but the streusel topping is like an insulator, so it adds a little bit more to the baking time. There we go. I think we're making sure we're getting every last bit here because these are going to be a favorite.
Have you ever thought about selling baked goods online?
You know, I always think, thought about it, but the problem is baked goods have a very short shelf life, and the cost to ship something so fast and get it a turnaround for somebody to be able to eat it the next day would probably be so expensive that it wouldn't be worth it. And it just wouldn't be things. I'm a great lover of, you've got to have your baked goods when they come out of the oven or fairly certain towards it. I'm just going to give a little love here. So no, I haven't. I just think it's just, you wouldn't get the product at its best. And it's just a lot of hassle for it. And I would feel really bad having to make somebody spend so much money for like an overnight shipping of something, for something that you can make yourself at home. And that's why I have these video recipes up there available. You can always rewatch it and make it at home, because none of these recipes require some, secret skill level. I didn't go to culinary school. I am self-taught. These are all things that you guys can make yourself at home. And I always try to use fairly simple ingredients that you can get at your local grocery store. Because again, I'm also not one to want to have to drive around to specialty stores or have to buy a specialty ingredient. Now there's occasional times where try something new or whatnot, but for most of that stuff, it's what you can buy at your local stores. So no crazy techniques, no baked Alaskas here, because I did see that viral video going around about somebody's baked Alaska birthday where they lit their whole living room on fire. I said, none of that is going on in this house. We're going to keep it safe.
How were the brownies this year?
They were delicious. They were wonderful. My mom came over at the time and she goes, I really wanted them, but I could tell that everyone was telling me, you can't cut into the yet. They're not ready. They're still warm. And she was like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I should have brought you over some, because I went over to their house late last night. And I was like, I guess I could have brought you one. She was like, yeah, you could have. And I was like, maybe next time.
Do you ever make a beef Wellington?
I do make a beef Wellington. I have kind of two ways that I make a beef Wellington. I've got what I call my poor man's beef Wellington, where you don't have to buy the really expensive bougie pork tenderloin. You just do it with a steak, and you kind of do a square wrap with a on there. And I have a video of that. We make a video of it for it. And that one's for like the more affordable. It's really easier to do. And then I have another version where it's the full beef tenderloin that you wrap with the pastry ends differently. Okay, we're gonna pop this in. We're gonna slide this underneath. And then this is going to bake for 22 minutes at 350. And then hopefully everything will be ready by then to eat. So 22 minutes, everything's on. But I do love a good beef Wellington. That was actually the meal that I cooked for my husband on our second date. So that was one of those things because, you know, you got to be like, oh, I'm quite a cook. I do that. And I cooked a beef Wellington and I made green beans. And, you know, you'd be surprised he ate all of those vegetables that I gave him, didn't complain, didn't realize how much he didn't like vegetables until I said I do. And he was like, no more vegetables. But no, I don't make it often. I'm sure my kids would like it if I made it more. But I do make the poor man's beef Wellington more than the bougie one because beef tenderloin, that's an expensive piece of meat. Let's get our chicken ready for our our chicken BLTs. I've got 2 fillets here that I'm going to cut in half. That way we can put them on our sandwiches. We have some hollow bread left over there because I made like these 2 super loaves. And this will cook up a little bit faster. We're going to do a simple seasoning on these. I'm trying to cut against the grain. And then my husband's pointing at the bacon. He's afraid I'm going to take the plate away from him. We have a limited amount of bacon. It might need to disappear soon. Okay. It's already missing a good portion of it. He will have a baconless BLT. That's like we'd always cooking, and my stepdad would always steal like the food off the plates before they were ready. And I was like, that means you're not getting it on your plate. I'm going to make sure that your plate has less of it on it than everybody else's.
You have a question. Do you thaw your protein or do you buy it fresh daily?
I buy it fresh daily, I will say 95% of the time. Now, sometimes I will overbuy and then I pop it in the freezer before it goes bad. So I always have a protein. But my rule of thumb is when I put something in the freezer, I try to use it within a month because I find that freezer protein does not last. It does not de-thaw and keep as well. So I try to use it up as quickly as possible once it goes in there. But I do typically buy fresh every week on there. So when I do the grocery shopping and I get fish, we typically have fish at the beginning of the week and then some of my heartier proteins that last towards the end of the week for them. Put in there. So right now on here, I've got onion powder, black pepper. I was pausing on my brain right there. We're putting some oregano, and then I put some Mrs. Dash's table blend on there. So we've got a nice kind of mixture of it, and then of course we'll do some garlic salt, and then we're going to flip it over and do it again, and then we'll do our last little drizzle of Worcestershire. That Worcestershire is going to keep the chicken, it's going to break down the natural fat in the chicken, which will make it really, really juicy and flavorful. And then I'm going to steal a little bit of this bacon grease to saute my chicken up in it because we're playing on the flavors of a BLT. So a little extra bacon flavor to the chicken will be lovely. But I'm not going to fry it in all of that bacon grease because that's a bit too much.
You have a question? Was that soy sauce you used?
Worcestershire. So Worcestershire sauce is like a flavored vinegar sauce, and it's really pungent right here if you were to eat it raw or like naturally, like right out of the bottle. It is a liquid, yes. So if you were to drink it, but when you cook it up, it has like it just enhances the flavor. You don't taste this, but this makes the food wonderful tasting. It breaks down. It's the same concept of lemon juice breaking down the fat and keeping your proteins moist, or buttermilk in chicken. The acidity of the Worcestershire makes the chicken or whatever protein you're using, pork, juicier. Cooks up. This has some nice savory notes to it, so it plays really well. But while it is very strong tasting in there, when you cook it up, it is not strong tasting. So that's why I said I don't like Worcestershire sauce straight up, but when it's cooked on there, it is very, very lovely. Sprinkle with, again, our Mrs. Dash's table blend, some onion powder, some dried oregano. And it's one of those things where if you were to just blindly taste it, you'd be like, nope, not doing it. But trust me, try it, and it is a game changer. It really makes things, especially with pork. Pork is typically, when you cook it up, it's a lot drier meat. So juicy. A little black pepper there, and then a little garlic salt. Okay. I'm going to get my pan going here, heating it up. And then we're going to add in just a little bit of this bacon grease to kind of cook it up. And the nice thing of just pouring it in here, I shouldn't get any of those little bacon drippings in there that could, burn more. That should be good. That should be good for right now. If I need to add in for a second round, we can. Just enough to kind of coat the bottom of our pan, but again, we don't need a huge amount. Once my pan is nice and hot, we will drop our chicken on. But until then, let's go and prep up what we might need for our sandwiches. So we've got for our BLTs here, we've got our leftover challah on here, which is nice, lovely. Stole a little bit from outside and didn't give my parents a full loaf because I was like, 2 of them don't need a whole loaf. We could steal a little bit for it so we can make some sandwiches. And then lettuce, tomatoes, and then I always put a little bit of cheese on there. So we've got some Gouda for it. But I'm just going to take, and you could use any bread, but we're just going to kind of cut right down the middle for it. And then let me actually get my griddle pan out. Let me grab a trivet here to put this pan on. And then I'm going to get my griddle pan so I can put a little butter and toast up the inside of each challah. Because whenever I remember the first time I had a BLT, it was at my sister's husband's parents. They were big golfers, and I don't know if golfing and BLTs are an actual thing together, but I've just always put them together. But we went to, it was like at the small little golf course in the middle of Iowa, and we had BLTs there. I don't know if it's a thing and if I just made that connection myself, but we had it there, and allegedly. But we had them there, and apparently they ate BLTs all the time. And I had never had one before because my family, as I said, I feel like growing up, we're either a sausage family or a bacon family, and we were a sausage family. But they're like the best things ever. And I was like, I really enjoy this BLT thing.
Have you ever had an MLT?
Good old MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato. Have not had an MLT. Not sure I would love an MLT. If you know, you know. Anybody get the reference? We'll see. It's from Princess Bride. Gotta love it. I was a show that I still remember the first time I saw that movie. I was homesick, and our babysitter came, and she was watching me, and she goes, I brought over a movie for you. And I was like, ooh, a movie. And she saw it because, in the movie, the kid's grandfather's reading to him because he's sick. And I thought it was such a great movie. Grandfather's reading to him because he's sick. And I thought it was such a great movie. Get my pan going here just a little bit. That is my kids' school system telling me they're probably closed on Monday. Already making the decision on a Saturday. Hasn't even gotten to Sunday. That is how, and people, I always say, people don't quite understand the crazy that we get here in the South. We buy out all the milk and bread, and school's closed. School's closed for Monday already, guys. We got our 2 inches of snow. It's closed, but they're crazy here. And I think, people up north are like, oh, well, we get a foot of snow and it's no problem. I said, the main difference is up north, people are prepared for it. They have salt trucks, they have plows. We don't have those things here. I think they were just boasting how Nashville just bought some more, things because think we had a terrible snowstorm last year that shut everything down. So they're like, purchased some. A lot of times we would just rent them from up north whenever there was a big snowstorm. But we have, people don't really understand the geography of where we are in Tennessee, but we have so many hills everywhere. I mean, I live like 3 miles from my parents' house, and I have to go up a huge hill just to get to them. And so I was like, two huge hills just to get to them. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if you have no salt and there's your spatula, no salt, no plowing, the snow's packed down, and people don't know how to drive on it on top of that, it's a pretty deadly condition there. So, I mean, we already have accidents already being reported everywhere for it on there. So everybody's like, we're just hunkering down, staying in for it. But we've got our chicken. I'm dropping my chicken in here that we seasoned up. I'm cooking it in a little bit of that bacon grease that's left over from our bacon we cooked up. I said we had a whole pound of bacon, but I think we're down to a half pound. We'll warm these up. Yeah, I'm gonna move this a little bit farther away. I'm gonna put this nice and safe over here, away from. As those are toasting up, let's prep up our lettuce and our tomatoes to have on our sandwiches, which will actually be cut. These are huge. We're gonna probably make a couple sandwiches out of each one. Let's get our tomatoes. Let me get these crumbs off because I don't want crumbs on my tomatoes. Love the tomatoes. So we've got, I'll give them a quick rinse, our 2 tomatoes here because it's in the name. You have to have them. My husband's like, you don't. You just need to have chicken and bacon on the sandwich, maybe cheese. That's what he calls his BLT. And I'm like, well, you're missing 2 of the letters. Okay, so we'll cut our tomatoes. Now, I always say if your knife ever slides on your tomato, that's when you know that it's not sharp. So, tomato skins are notoriously very, very slippery and on there. So, a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife. And that's always when I know. Tomatoes, onions, and peppers. If I can't just effortlessly slice through them, that's when I need to sharpen them up. Now, it's not going to be I know sometimes you'll see those videos and they're like, you don't have to have it that sharp where it's like, your fruit ninja and it's going through in there. Just where it doesn't snag. And let's get our lettuce. Now, butter leaf lettuce. Yes, but romaine will work. Again, why I get heads instead of the bagged lettuce is because I have now heads of lettuce I can use for sandwiches. And, you could do it for lettuce wrap, but it's multiple things. Cut it up and you have salad. So buying a head, it's not just more economical because it's cheaper, but it has more uses on top of it. And it stays fresh longer. So we got a nice good syrup on there. Flip our chicken over. Good. Let them kind of cook through for it. And then I'm going to grab myself new tongs now that we did our first flip. I will say, if you have not used tongs in the kitchen before or have things, they're one of my favorite utensils to cook with. And I use them for a variety of different, not just like proteins. I use them in soups, everything. Love my tongs. I have so many of them. I have like 7 pairs.
And can you briefly go over what your challah bread is?
Yes. So this is my quick challah bread that I made up last night. It's a simple yeast bread that you can make in an hour. And the trick is you actually use a bit more yeast in it than you would with a typical hollow loaf to quicken up that proofing process. It kind of cuts it down in half. So I made 2 long loaves, each this length. Each one uses about a tablespoon of yeast in it, with some honey and a little bit of sugar in there, an egg, and we'll let it kind of do our rise. And then to get the really pretty braids, it is not a 3-piece braid like I do my hair. It's actually that's 4. I got to put my right number of fingers up. A 4-pronged braid. Now, a 4-pronged braid, it's a little bit tricky things, but you have to just concentrate. You kind of start with it, going the same thing. You just added another loop, and then you kind of go back and forth with it. But it will give you that really, really pretty kind of weave on it. 3 is just kind of bland. 4 gives you that prettier loaf to it. Okay, let's get our cheese. We're going to do a Gouda with this because Gouda is a nice kind of simple cheese, but I could also do a cheddar or whatnot, but I don't want it to compete with the bacon or the chicken. And so I'm doing more of a simple but easier one. And I'm using my little mousse because it's snowing out there and it's just time to shine. Look at this. Now, if you ever get to where your cheese is like this and it's starting to get difficult to cut, because if you do it like this, just go peel off your wax. And then you just turn it to the side. You take off your side slice like this, which is dried out. And then you just start from this angle. And then you should have a nice, easy slice that you can start taking from that angle. So you just have to just keep changing angles. Otherwise, you'll be going up like trying to like cheese scrape the slope on it. There's a method because it doesn't ever just come across perfectly. It always, whoop, it's because the way you're pulling your hand. Let's see how our chicken is going. Still needs a little bit more. We'll do a nice little flip over one last to kind of cook it up. I'm going to turn it down for this last little final simmer through. And then once that's cooked, we'll get ready to assemble our sandwiches for this. Let's see, let's go check our time. About 4 minutes left, so we're kind of got some really good timing here on it for our thing. So let me slide over there. We'll get, let's see. I think I'm going to need a little bit more cheese. There we go. That should be good on our cheese here. Now you can also put in your loaves or on your sandwich if you like mayonnaise, or you can make a nice little bougie mayonnaise where you mix in like a little pesto with the mayo to have a nice kind of full like little flavor to it. Let's get our bacon. That is carefully there. I'm going to get a drink real quick. We'll check our chicken and then we'll assemble these guys. Okay, these are looking pretty good. Yep. Look good. I'm going to turn off my burner here. Let's check. Oh, perfect. We're going to do this guy in the middle. We've got a nice toasted.
And what brand of cheese do you buy?
So that is a Gouda from it. I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain I got that from Costco. So I'm not 100% sure what brand it was when I got it.
And can you go over the method for cooking chicken?
So I started out with 2 thicker chicken breasts and I filleted them in half. And then I coated them with Worcestershire sauce, garlic salt, onion powder, a little bit of Mrs. Dash's table blend, oregano, and black pepper to season them up. And then we had some bacon grease left over from cooking our bacon. So I added it into our pan to kind of go along those same kind of flavor profiles of our BLT. And then kind of cook them up on both sides. The first side, once you kind of start to see the whites of the chicken go up around the sides and you look and you have that good sear, I flip them over for it. because they've already been filleted in half, they're going to cook much faster. And I get a plate here to remove them off, because even though I turned off the heat, there is still residual kind of temperature from it cooking. There we go. Beautiful. And you let it sit, just like with most meats. Before you cut into it, let it sit for about 5 minutes to let those juices kind of just naturally stay into the meat for it. And then I'm just waiting for the rest of our sandwiches here to kind of toast up. They're pretty. There we go. We've got a nice little toasting up here. That does not equal that one. Just about. And then we can assemble our sandwiches. We'll get our pumpkin coffee cake out of the oven. There we go. Nice little crisp up. So this one with that one. And with this is just also a great way to use extra bread that you have left over instead of just having to eat it straight up as a loaf of bread, which I mean is delicious. But we're changing it into a new meal as our staple. Bring this over here, and that way we'll have our little assembly line that we can assemble for it.
Aren't you going to air fry the fries?
Oh, yes. I will pop those in. Those will pop. We'll assemble. We'll take those out. We'll pop them in up. Those need to only air fry for about 5 minutes, but we won't do it until we're done baking the thing. Not even 5 minutes. Like, things are already cooked almost all the way through. So when we come back, because the pumpkin loaves are done in 20 seconds, I'll move them up while we're over there. We will assemble our sandwiches. Then we can go grab our air fries out and we can plate up everything for it. But let's head over there. And we'll grab it. So, see, perfect timing. Beautiful. Give them a nice tap, nice and firm. So this is our pumpkin coffee cake. Look at that, gorgeous. I'm going to slide these guys up. So they should already be cooked all the way through. All we have to do is we're going to change it to our air fryer setting. So I'm going to turn off my oven and we're going to cook it there, 425. That's going to just crisp up the outsides of our fries, which will make them absolutely lovely. Here is our gorgeous coffee cake pumpkin loaves. With our nice little streusel topping on the top. So we made our base pumpkin, our sourdough pumpkin base for it. And then we made our cinnamon streusel topping, which is a mixture of butter, cinnamon, flour, and brown sugar. We put that through after we put some of our pumpkin mixture down, then we scoop the pumpkin base on top again, and then we coated it with our streusel mixture. And it has just a lovely, it's just a perfect hybrid between pumpkin bread and coffee cake, because you get all of that goodness of the coffee cake, the crumb things, but instead of the cake base being a vanilla cake, it's a pumpkin base. So delicious. Let's build our sandwiches here for this. Okay, we'll start, make sure I have them up. We're going to put, since these are essentially 2 sandwiches per thing, if not more. We're going to start with our chicken on the bottom of each one. And then we are going to add our cheese up top. That way we can let it kind of warm up and toast a little bit here. And then on top of our chicken, we've got our bacon, because this is a very important part of the BLT. So we've got our crazy kind of bacon on it. Put over here. We've got quite the little masterpieces that we're assembling. And then we're going to do our tomatoes. I put the tomatoes on here because you do it first before you do the lettuce. It protects the kind of things. And then we have our lettuce, and we're going to flip and do vice versa. So you'll have 2 on each one. And then we'll put our sandwich on top. Lots of piece of juice. Boom. Look at that. And be very, very careful. Look. Now, I just need to have those special little toothpicks that go through with the little things, because this is not the most epic BLT chicken sandwiches ever on homemade challah bread with our bacon, sauteed chicken breast with those lovely spices, our homemade challah, the tomatoes, the lettuce. Perfect, perfect, perfect thing. And let's go grab our home fries out of the oven, since they should have their last little crisping up on there. It doesn't take long to get these crisp up because, again, we cooked them for over 30 minutes at that things. They're just that final crisping up. Beautiful. And now you see we've got these lovely golden toasted edges. It's just a great way for them to be perfect. And then we can cut our sandwiches and we will serve everything up. Okay. Now let me grab our plate. Let me slide this out of the way first. Rotate this. On here. So these are our Parmesan truffle fries. Now the trick with this is you use, when you're kind of doing the coating batter, is you mix a teaspoon of truffle oil with olive oil to give you that nice truffle flavor. And then we added Parmesan cheese, panko breadcrumbs, flour, garlic salt, and black pepper. So they have just this wonderful kind of garlicky, cheesy taste to it, but so much flavor. And where do I have it? Yep. So we'll turn it to the sideways and I'll cut right through between the 2 chicken breasts. And let me grab a spatula for our home fries. Just toss these here, but look at these beautiful, crispy, crunchy edges on there. That is where you're cooking them up on the nice metal tin. Loki, we don't need to bark at everybody outside. Okay, let's get ready to serve up. This is, as you can see, a massive sandwich. More than one person could possibly eat. But we build it in one. And now we have 2 perfect little sandwiches. We've got our bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich with our sauteed chicken on here on our homemade challah bread. And then we're going to be serving this with our garlic, Parmesan, and truffled fries that have just that wonderful hint of truffle oil on them, fresh grated Parmesan cheese, and a little bit of garlic salt for that just savory and deliciousness. And then for dessert, we have our pumpkin coffee cake loaves. We've got our pumpkin base with that cinnamon swirl in the middle, and then the streusel on top for the perfect little touch of sweetness on this nice and snowy day. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. Our homemade chicken BLTs with our pumpkin coffee cakes, and you can always watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gears and gadgets on it. So I've got my cutting boards, I've got my griddle pans, my mini loaf pans, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.